Hello, welcome to SwitchedOn Gaming, Paul speaking. And with so many top-down racing games coming out recently on the Nintendo Switch, I thought it would be a good time to give you a list of the best and worst available on the Switch. And then we'll stick them all in a tier list and see who comes out on top. So sit back, enjoy the video, and let's start the engines. Now first up, we've got 2D Ultimate Racing, and just some good and bad points in this one. First of all, it's got a good selection of tracks and a decent season mode, and also does include a wide variety of vehicles, probably the widest of all the games on this list. You can pick from cars, open wheel cars, stock cars, go-karts, even bikes and speedway bikes and stuff, so you've got a good variety here, and say a good variety of tracks. Negative points, the controls are really bad and it feels really basic to play, which makes the gameplay really uninteresting. The presentation is also awful, and the sound effects here aren't great. So let's drop this into one of our tier lists, and we're going to be ranking this one in position C on the list. It's not very good. Next up is Rock'n Racing GP, which is another top-down Formula 1 like game. This one is absolutely awful to control, near on impossible. The AI are as dumb as a box of frogs. It really is terrible. The music is absolutely terrible as well. I can't say enough bad things about this one. Let's just get to a ranking. And with that, probably isn't a massive surprise to see Rock'n Racing Grand Prix go in as one of the worst games in position D. So next up is Gotcha Racing 2D. Now this one is like a pure arcade game. You've got a really nice, what they call the gotcha or gacha system, where you can buy little eggs with new car parts in. That's quite nice. There's lots of cars and lots of different events to unlock. And you've got this really cool like fusion system where you can spend some of your unwanted parts with other parts to create supposedly better parts, although it can fail sometimes. So that's quite cool. It's also got online leaderboards, although controls in this one are particularly bad, and it's got very basic graphics and music, so it's not going to be one of the top tier. Let's have a look where it places. Now I think this game definitely has its flaws, obviously, but if you can get used to the controls, there's a lot to do here, and I really do like that sort of capsule mechanic, so I'm going to stick this in tier B. Made by the same company that made Rock'n Racing GP, and similarly as bad, and also in some ways worse, if that's even possible. This is Rock'n Racing OffRoad, which I desperately wanted to be like a remake of Iron Man Ivan Stewart's Off-Road Racing from back in the arcade days, which is one of my favourite games. But anyway, they've tried to do that, they've failed miserably. Probably the best plus here is it's got local multiplayer, but apart from that, it's all downhill. We've got worse AI than the GP game. They just drive into walls and just get stuck. It's terrible. There's no indication of what car is yours on the track, and they all look very similar, and it becomes almost impossible to tell who you are when you're going around the track, and the graphics and sound are just absolutely basic, really are terrible. So not going to be a huge surprise where this one's dropping. Let's have a look. And yeah, absolutely no surprise by now. You'll see this slip straight in next to Rock'n Racing GP. Terrible pair of games. Avoid these at all costs, even when they go on mega sale. Now if you're a fan of the channel, you'd have seen my coverage of Rush Rally Origins over the last few weeks. An absolutely brilliant game made by the same guy that made Rush Rally 3, which is an excellent 3D rally game. Now Rush Rally Origins is a remake of the original game that he made, updated with new physics based on Rush Rally 3. This is a top-down rally game, obviously. Absolutely superb. It's got a decent career mode spanning sort of 6 different locations. It's got a race mode as well, which is unusual for a rally game, where you can race against other AI cars, which is really cool. Excellent integration of online leaderboards for all tracks and classes, which just make sort of time trials and stuff a joy to play. The graphics and sounds are superb. I mean, honestly, you see this game made by one guy. He has a little bit of help, but basically one guy. Incredible stuff. It's got a great sense of speed as well. And maybe one of the best things about it is the price. It's less than £5 in the UK. If I'm going to nitpick a little bit, the presentation feels a little bit mobile-y, and I'd say it's a massive nitpick. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. This is a great game. I don't think it's going to be any surprise where this one's going on the tier list. Let's check it out. And there we go. To the surprise of nobody, we will put Rush Rally Origins right at the top tier list. This is S tier. A brilliant game. You have to own it. Such a great price as well. if you're a fan of racing games, make sure you've got this in your collection. Now, a bit of a departure this one. It's a bit of a cheek to put this in, I suppose, but it's still a top-down racing game, although you don't actually race. This is Motorsport Manager from Curve Digital. Now, as I say, you don't actually get to race in this one, but it is a management game, and it's beautifully presented. It's got a lot of decent management aspects in managing your own motorsport team. Looks absolutely superb. They've done a great job on the presentation and to get it working nicely with a controller as well. It's really, really well thought out. And there's loads to do. You can start out in a different tier of motorsport, quite low down, and then work your way up to become the open wheel, basically Formula 1 champion. Really good. Now, this isn't licensed, although there is a good editor, and check out a video, I'll try and link it if I remember, where I go through and update the current Formula 1 teams. At the time, it's a couple of years out of date, but it shows you what can be done with the editor. And the only other negative I'd say is probably not a negative of the game as such, just really the sport it's based on, but there isn't as much management stuff to do here as you'd get in, say, Football Manager or something like that. But as I say, not a fault of the game. They've done as well as they could, and it's a really good game, so check it out. This is Motorsport Manager. Whilst not an action game and it won't appeal to everybody on this list, it's still an excellent top-down racing game, and I'm going to be putting Motorsport Manager not quite S tier, but into the A tier. It's an excellent game. If you're a fan of motorsport and strategy games, then you really must own this one. Next up is Art of Rally that came out recently, and man, I was desperate for this to be good. I had my doubts because I played it on sort of a lesser spec PC system and it really did struggle, and unfortunately it carries over to the Switch as well. The performance isn't particularly great and the graphical downgrade is almost unacceptable. I mean, to the extent we've gone from like having grass at the side of the track to flat green polygon textures. It's just a really, really poor port. I know some people have enjoyed it, it's just not for me. Plus and minuses here, it's got a nice art style, but those graphics are sorely downgraded. We have got a nice long career mode though, with lots to do and lots to unlock, which is pretty cool. But I say the performance overall, the frame rate isn't great, load times aren't great, and it's just a frustrating game to play because of these things. Let's have a look though and see how it compares with the other games on the list so far. And as I say, it's sad because I really wanted this to be good, but for that performance and downgrading graphics alone, I'm sadly going to have to slot this in at B tier. It's a shame. Hopefully they can patch it and improve it as time goes on though. Now, there's just a couple of games left on the list if these can break into the top spots. First up is Mantis Burn Racing, which is a good few years old now, but did review quite well at the time. This has got a lot of decent stuff in it. It's got a really good branching rear mode with car upgrades and lots of different race types that you can select from. Really, really impressive variety in the race types. There is online racing, although there's nobody about at the moment in the lobbies to race against, which is a shame. But as I say, the tracks are nice and varied, from sort of dusty deserts to city tracks, and it is a nice looking game. Now, the controls are quite annoying. I find it really a hard game to control, and oddly it's also a game that makes me feel quite nauseous, so I can't play for too long without getting a fuzzy head, which is a bit odd. I've never been able to work out why. Also, the AI is very tough in this game, making the races quite frustrating. If you make one mistake, you are basically a toast in this one. But let's see where it ranks. And despite giving it a fair amount of praise in my overview there, it is a game I've never really got on with, so I'm going to be dropping this one in the B tier. It's quite a nice game. Your mileage may vary, but there you go, B tier for me. So last game on the list now, this is MiniMoto Racing X, which I reviewed a little while ago for a decent review. This one has got a huge variety of tracks and loads of tracks to work through in the career mode, and a good number of cars to unlock as well, which is really cool, some of which you'll recognise, although they're not licensed officially. This has also got a decent online mode, and also comes with a few arcade games. I think there's 6 or 8 arcade games, one of which is a fairly decent remake of Rocket League, so that's quite nice to have in a game of this sort of size. And there's also the X mode as well, where you can pick up weapons on the track and use them against other cars, which is really cool. And lots of different views that you can use as well. It's not just top down, you can use a behind the car view and even an in cockpit view, which is really cool. But primarily this is a top down racer. The handling though is extremely arcadey. It's almost digital, so it does well getting used to. There's no drifting really around corners here, so it does take a little bit getting used to. And the presentation does feel a little bit dated. It's sort of a, well, it's a port of a mobile game, and it does kind of feel like it sometimes. So let's have a look on the list, see where this one breaks in. despite having those slightly hard to get used to controls, once you do master it, this is a great game with loads of content, really close racing. It's really fun. I'm going to stick it up in the A tier, and that finishes off the list. I'm really happy with the list overall. I think it's a good representation of these games on the Nintendo Switch, but please let me know below if you have any difference of opinion and what your favourite top-down racing game is, and if you're going to be picking any of these up. I would say absolutely avoid the 2 games down in the D list from the Rock and Racing range. Awful games. But anything else on the list, as I said, your mileage may vary, especially if you can pick them up on sale. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it too, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new. It'd be really appreciated. But until next time, I will see you again soon. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.